And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday for sales and service. And you can see them all the time at greatlakeshondacity.com. I am picture in picture with one of my favorite coaches, not in upstate New York, not in the state of New York, but one of my favorite coaches that I've ever talked to. Why? Because she will be humble. She will tell you about her team. She will tell you about people that are her mentors. She'll tell you about staff. But I get to talk about Jess Bump, and she has to, whether she likes it or not, just deal with me giving her credit for things. They're coming off the best season that Binghamton softball has ever had when you look at the amount of wins that they've had, the run that they made, and everything that they put forward. So in this Bearcat Breakroom with Jess Bump, we're in the 2026 season for Binghamton softball, and I could not be more proud of everything that's been building over the years from someone who cares so much about the Bearcats. Jess, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for the nice intro. That was very nice of you.
Well, I mean, you should have it. Listen, you and your student athletes and the staff, you're the reason why. I mean, listen, I've covered softball for many years at the high school and collegiate level, but not just last season. In general, your passion and the conversations that we've had and with your student athletes, it's the people that make everything up, right? The people that truly make something special. And all I can say is I don't think I've ever been more excited for Binghamton softball than I am going into this season. So credit to you and credit to your staff and to those that you've recruited onto this team. And that's where I want to start. What you can say about the family that we have with this Bearcat softball squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I've talked to you before, it's been a long time of building. I've been a part of Binghamton softball since 2010 in whatever capacity that may be between a player, an alumni, an assistant coach, and now the head coach. So, this is a lot of years of building, and I think last year was kind of like the pinnacle and where I wanted to get this program. And heading into this season, I think we're in a great spot. We've played 2 weekends so far, and we've had some tough games.
Yeah.
But I think we knew that this season was going to be tough, just the way that we put the schedule together. So, for those of you that haven't really looked at our schedule, playing a lot of Power Four conference teams early on in the season, and some other mid-major teams that are either on the mid-major top 25 or made it to the NCAA tournament last year. So, we've definitely been tested early, and I think we've seen glimpses of some really good things. We just haven't put all three aspects of the game together yet, and I think we still feel good about where we're going to be moving forward. And I think it's just teaching us some toughness and what areas we have to get better at. But we've got a great team. Everyone's bought in. They understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I think once we kind of get back into the Northeast and get into a little groove, we're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, and to go back to last season for a moment before we build forward in 2026, 36-14 on the season. We see, like I said, the most wins ever in a season for Binghamton softball. You said it was a lot of building to get to that point. You got to go to Eugene, Oregon to be in the NCAAs. I mean, what I talk about that kind of tip of the iceberg thing, right? So people see what last season was, but they don't see everything under the water. What was all that under the water stuff that helped you get to that point last season that you think can also help you carry forward success into this season?
I think a lot of it was just, the 2 years prior, we felt like we were in a good spot to go into the conference tournament and compete, and we just didn't necessarily play our best softball when it mattered at the end of the year. So our returners had a bad taste in their mouth. And I think they knew the places that we kind of fell short and what we needed to work on. So, our leadership last year with the three of our girls that graduated was outstanding, and they really kind of led the team and put everyone under their wings and was like, this is our goal and this is what we're going to do. And there's really no other option. So I think moving forward, the tough piece is you're never going to experience the same thing again. So you're never going to have the same team twice. We won last year, so now we're kind of in uncharted waters as far as like we don't know what it's like the year after you win because this is kind of the first time that all of us have experienced it. So I think it's just a rewind of last season because we knew we had a great team. Our goal was to win. We weren't going to accept anything else. So now this year is like we've won. We want to go back to back. What's this team's identity going to be? What's going to make us better than last year? So I think those are all just little things that we have to figure out as the season goes on. But it's just uncharted territory right now. And we're obviously playing with some expectations. We started the year in the mid-major top 25. And I think if we made a few plays, had a few more timely hits the last 2 weeks, we would have won some more games, but that's in the past. We can't really go back. So, going into this next week and a half of practice, we kind of know what we have to work on and what parts of the game we have to excel at a little bit more in order to win those games later. So, I think the biggest thing for this team is just figuring out like what makes us tick. When we have good games, like why are we having good games? When we have bad games, why are we having bad games? And those are just things that we're going to continue to learn throughout the next few weeks before we start conference play at the end of March.
Yeah, and you talk about players moving forward, Sarah Rende, Brianna Santos, as well as Lindsey Walter. I mean, those names, what type of legacy do they leave with this program? And just how you've seen the passing of the torch to the 2026 team.
So the three of them were really special. I mean, Sarah was a part of Binghamton softball for 4 years. She was a freshman my first year. Lindsay was a fifth year. Brianna Santos was a sixth year. Last year was her third year with Binghamton softball. So I think they were great leaders. They were great students. They were great teammates. And I think, what we talked about this fall was like, we need some leaders to step up, but we don't need you to be them. Like, you need to be your own leader, but let's take some little pieces of the three of them that made them good, and we need to sprinkle that kind of around everybody. So I think, it just goes back to what I said. We got to find our new identity without completely changing our culture, and what worked last year. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but what does that look like for us this year? And I think we'll just continue to kind of figure that out. But the three of them are amazing people. They're great alumni. Brianna Santos is on our staff right now, so she's kind of given us a new perspective, being a younger coach, but being in it last year, on the championship team. So I think we continue to talk about the three of them because they helped us get to where we were going to be, and where we're at right now. And how do we move forward from that? And the biggest thing we talk about is like you're never going to have the same feeling every year. Like last year was my first championship. Like I'm always going to cherish that, but I as a head coach have to move on from that feeling because we're not ever going to get that back again. And I think from the player perspective, they have to feel the same way and understand that this is a whole new group of 24 athletes that are moving the program in the right direction, but it might just look a little bit different.
Yeah, and you spoke about Brianna now being on your staff. How important was that to bridge the gap? Like you said, to have never gotten to that championship place, then you get to that championship place, and now, you have to move forward knowing like, okay, last season's last season. It felt great. It was wonderful. It was great for the program, but now we have to build again. It's not like you start off the season at number one. You have to earn your way back up. So having Brianna on staff, was there something in the back of your mind or in the forefront of your mind of saying this could be a great way of bridging? She knew how to get here, and now as we move forward and we want to sustain success and not just be a one-hit wonder, so to speak, how important was it to have Bree with you as you step forward?
It's been important. I think we were lucky that she still had one more year left to complete her second master's degree, so she was going to be here anyway. And I don't think she necessarily knows what she wants to do moving forward. So we were like, let's try out the coaching thing, see if this is something you want to do. But she's been great, kind of like what you said. She's been a good bridge. And she's great to kind of knock ideas off of like, listen, you were in this spot last year. Like, what do you think they're feeling right now? What are they thinking? Just because she's so new out of the program. So, and always the first year out of college getting into coaching is always the hardest because you're still in that player mentality,
Yeah.
but you also have the coach mentality. So like her emotions about certain things might be a little bit different than ours are. There might be like some frustration because she's like, man, like I could be out there. I was just out there. But she's been great. She's a super hard worker. She's a great human being. And she's just been a great addition to our staff.
Jess Bump here in this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. You had a tournament down in South Carolina to start off this 2026 season. You started off by seeing a familiar opponent an hour north of you up here in Syracuse University, won 5-1. And I had no issue sharing that all over my social media to say, heck of a way to start the season, 5-1 victory. Then you played number 19 in the country, Virginia Tech, and that was a close game, 4-1. Played Syracuse again in a 1 point of separation there, 4-3. Played Virginia Tech again and saw that Virginia Tech game, 11-3 in that sense. And then University of South Carolina, who's ranked 12th in the nation, before going to the Auburn tournament to face off against the University of Illinois, Bradley, Campbell, and Auburn, and we saw some close matchups there, and the closest one, Campbell, being 6-5. So like you said, if some timely hits happen, more defensive plays in the right moments, then, we could see a flip of some of these losses into victories. But being able to play the Virginia Techs, the South Carolinas of the world that are ranked in the nation's top 20, and to play a bunch of these games close, as well as that Campbell game in the Auburn tournament close, just what you took away from, despite the loss, the non-conference play of challenging yourself, like you said, in a lot of Power 4 instances, and playing a bunch of teams already that have been regarded as top 20 nationally when it comes to Division I softball.
So it was something that we talked about after regionals last year. We went out to Eugene, kind of like I talked about before, a little uncharted waters, first time being in a regional in 10 years. Atmosphere is a little bit different. There's some stakes on the line. Playing some of the most elite players in the country, but we felt like we could have performed better. So moving forward into this year, like how can we be more prepared if we have the opportunity to go back there again? And the only way you're going to be more prepared is if you put yourself in that situation early on in the season. So it was kind of, our staff talked about it. We talked about it with some of the returners. This is kind of our plan. What do you guys think of it? And, I think it's obviously a little shell-shocking at first when you look at all the top teams we're playing, but I think after these first 2 weeks, it's pretty clear that, like, if we play a clean game and we play our softball, like, these games can be a lot closer. The 4-1 Virginia Tech game was a great game, and we left some runners on base. Our pitchers threw pretty well, but, the one thing these first 2 weekends that we've kind of known is, and have figured out from all three parts of the game, your defense has to be clean. You have to come up big with runners in scoring position, and our pitchers, we have to limit the walks, and they're going to take advantage of mistakes. So I think that's like one of the biggest things that we've learned, but it's just going to help us moving forward. And even the 11-3 game to Virginia Tech, the score does not reflect how the game was. What was interesting in our first weekend, we were winning or tied through 4 innings in every single game. So, like, we started the games good, we had control over them, and then, the other team just kind of beat us. But, there's also been some games like last weekend where we beat ourselves and they didn't necessarily win the game. So I think from all three parts, like, we just got to clean it up a little bit. Our pitchers got to make big pitches and big moments. Our hitters got to come up with big hits and big moments. And when balls are put in play in big moments, we got to make plays. So I think, all these games we've played and we've lost, and whether or not we've lost by a little or a lot, the score doesn't necessarily reflect how the game has gone, which, fans and supporters don't see that because they're not at the field. But I think it's been tough because, I think we think that we could be 4-5, 5-4, if games go different, and we're 1-8 right now. But I think it's just gonna mentally make us better moving forward, and just knowing if a few of these things go a different way and we can stay focused for longer periods of time, right around that 5th inning is where things have kind of gone downhill for us in all of these games. So just having a sharper focus and moments that are big, but also not making any moment too big. And sometimes when you're in these bigger games, it's easier said than done to do that. So I'm glad we're kind of getting all this out now, so we know what we need to work on, moving forward throughout the rest of the season.
I know that there's a lot of places I want to go with this, but I know we don't have as much time here today. So I just want to do a final note foundationally for you, pillar wise, to create sustained success. It was the build up to get to where you were last season that came over many, many years. What are the foundational pieces of this house of softball at Binghamton that you have carried into this season that you say, hey, as long as we keep these pillars in place, we can make sure we sustain this thing?
I think I would say like just the overall buy-in is the biggest piece. Like what got us to where we were last year. We had every single player buy in. And that's not me saying that we're not bought in right now. But like when you're asking foundational pieces, I think
Yeah.
that's what that is. And I will say our newcomers have done a great job of really buying into all of our philosophies and our systems. And they've been great throughout these last 2 weeks, kind of knowing what their roles are and being ready to step in when we ask them to. And our returners are, playing with some expectations right now. And I think that's just something that we got to work through. Um, and then just knowing like what makes Binghamton softball Binghamton softball. It's supporting one another always. That's the biggest piece that we had last year. Everyone knew what their role was. They embraced it. Everyone was ready for a challenge when it came to fruition. So I would say like the overall buy-in and just the supporting piece are things that really worked for us last year. And I think as the season goes on, like we're gonna lock those things in. And once we kind of get into a little groove, like our offense is very lethal. And, the timely hits we might not have gotten the last 2 weeks, like they're now going to get those in 3 weeks because we've been in some tough situations and we're going to get them done now. From a pitching perspective, we have a lot of experience back, and now it's like you're the commanders of the field, and we need you guys to step up in moments where maybe the defense isn't doing great behind you. So those are just things that we constantly talk about. And last weekend in Auburn, my associate head coach Michaela talked to the girls about like the reason we put this schedule together is because we want you guys to show off your skills. Like we are a good team from the Northeast and we want the country to see that. And like you need to be able to showcase what we do every day. And I think they felt that, and we're pretty tough on them, but we also love them so much. And I think when things are tough, it's hard to remember those things, even as a staff. Like how do I stay consistent when things are going great and when things aren't going great to make sure that we can continue to move forward? So when you ask for foundational pieces, it's consistency, the buy-in, and then just the support.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of what you said is, beyond the win, how can we win? Show people who we are, what we're about, and that Northeast softball has a place in Binghamton University that is not going to go quietly in the night in any season. Bearcat Breakroom with Jess Bump. Jess, as always, I appreciate your time. Please give my best to the team, and I'm very excited about covering this team throughout another awesome season, and I look forward to everything that is to come.
Awesome, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.